So, here we are again. 2 years ago, I called out YouTube for what I saw as blatant discrimination against me, and I wasn't alone. There were a lot of other creators talking about similar topics at the time, and after the situation with me specifically, YouTube promised to me directly that they would at least start discussions about trying to fix these problems. Yet, 2 years later, here I am again, facing the same and even escalating issue. And it's not just hurting my career, my ability to pay my bills, it's draining my energy, my creativity, and frankly, my health. Because over the course of the past month alone, I have dealt with 5 different situations that are indicative of how while YouTube claims to be a platform that supports artists, it is in truth a machine that is continually disenfranchising those in most need of a voice. And a place where big corporations profit off of rage bait and predatory copyright claims, and harassment and aggrievement are actively monetarily incentivized at the direct expense of sacrificing marginalized creators. And all of this is not new. It's something that we were talking about 2 years ago and even before then, but it has continued to accelerate. And frankly, we are heading for a head-on collision with all of it, and it needs to change. But YouTube isn't planning to change its course. So that means that I have to. Because you see, my first instinct after everything that happened this month, like it was 2 years ago, was to rage. I wanted to come on here and share my frustration and anger about how YouTube's policies enable discrimination, enable bad actors, and enable harassment over and over and over again. I wanted to share how angry I am that no matter how hard I try to show that I am more than what they try to define and confine me as, I'm constantly shoved into the same box, that commodified, marginalized identity that everyone sees me simply as and nothing more than. I'm angry that people claim to listen to me, but prove time and again that they've heard nothing that I and others have had to say over and over and over again. And it's an anger that has been smoldering and building for 2 years, stoked by YouTube's machine itself that feeds off of division and dehumanization for profit. And now that burning rage is burning me out. So if YouTube won't change, I have to. As I said, I've had several alarming incidents that happened to me and my channel in just the past month alone that I believe are highly indicative of larger growing problems that YouTube needs to deal with and address, or else this platform will become something frankly completely unusable for many people. So I'm going to go through my situations and then link them to larger systemic problems here at YouTube. So let's talk about the first. A few weeks ago, I released the video J.K. Rowling and the Moldy Transphobic Racism, a video where I discussed the harassment around boxer Aman Khalif at the 2024 Olympics, which is in part fueled by J.K. Rowling's own platforming of said harassment, alongside those like Elon Musk. And while that video was positioned as about a culture war topic of the week, I tried to use it as an opportunity to explore deeper systemic prejudices like sexism, racism, transphobia, and intersex bigotry in organized sports, and then talk about how these prejudices intertwine and are normalized through our institutions, not just within sports, but even beyond it. It's an ironic topic considering what we're going to be talking about with the rest of this video on YouTube. And that video quickly became one of my best performing pieces of the last few months. But 20 hours after it went live, it was age restricted. For those of you unfamiliar, an age gate is something that YouTube can put on a video that is intended to stop viewers under 18 from seeing it. However, what it does in practice is stop anyone who is not signed into YouTube from accessing the video, and then those who are signed in have to be registered as over 18. What this ultimately results in is a severe limiting of a video's reach, because a lot of people who see videos, especially ones that go widespread on the internet, are not signed into YouTube. And for me personally, I create videos like that one to be shared as resources for trans people and others to learn about these issues. My entire goal is to reach people who may have heard about this culture or topic, want to learn more about it, and then direct them to more information about a broader range of issues. It's meant to be able to spread out to as wide an audience as possible, and an age gate entirely defeats that purpose and intention. Beyond that, an age gate also affects the video's monetization, which is how I make a large portion of my living. I also even had a sponsor on the video, and while I was paid a flat fee for it, future sponsorship rates on videos are determined by a video's previous performance. So age gating it indirectly affects all of my sponsorships going forward. So obviously an age gate is a big deal for any YouTuber as it happened to the video, so when I woke up on the following day after the video went out and saw that the age gate had happened to my video overnight and had been up for several hours, beyond being frustrated and confused, I wanted to get it resolved immediately. However, there was a problem. YouTube gave me zero information on why the age gate happened at all. All I got was an auto-generated email that pointed me to their general policy, which mentions numerous things including child safety, drugs, graphic content, vulgar language, and nudity, but absolutely no specifics on what I supposedly violated with the video to cause an age gate. It was just, figure it out for yourself. Now, to be fair and balanced, YouTube does have a feature that can cite exact sections or moments of a video that break policy. However, interestingly, that feature wasn't used here. It was in a situation we'll be talking about later, so the distinction is notable to me for reasons that we'll get to in just a moment. But with no information, I had to guess what had triggered the age gate in my over hour-long video, because ultimately I wanted to try to appeal the age gate, an option that YouTube gives you to do in their back end. What I did know is that my video most likely didn't break any rules of child safety, dangerous activity, or excessive vulgar language, because yes, I do swear, but so get off my back, alright? Sorry, I'm trying to add some humor to this video so I don't just get angrier and angrier. But ultimately I narrowed down to 4 possibilities that might have triggered the age gate. None that I actually thought broke policy, but maybe could have triggered an age gate being instigated. First and foremost, there was a quick clip where an athlete discusses self-harm, but I doubt that this triggered the age gate because it's not visually gory nor is it descriptive, it's just a mention of self-harm. Also, the clip comes from a video here on YouTube from the New York Times, which that video itself is not age-gated. The second possibility might have been from a brief shot of an intersex biology graphic that I show in the video, which itself has been used in other educational videos here on YouTube that aren't age-gated, and on top of that, diagrams like this are shown in school textbooks and aren't rated 18+. And, as something that'll become important later on, YouTube itself, in its policy on age-gating, says that it allows brief, non-sexual nudity within educational or artistic contexts.
While sexually explicit content like pornography isn't allowed, we actually allow nudity when the primary purpose is educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic.
So I don't think that broke it either. The third possibility is that it could have been some of the memes from transvestigation conspiracy theory groups that I show in the video. But while those memes are definitely politically concerning, for sure, they're not sexual or graphic, and they are shown in an educational context to teach about these conspiracy groups. But the fourth and final, and probably most likely culprit of the age gate, primarily based on some later information that I got, is a section at the end of the video where I kiss my fiance for an extended period of time. So this requires even more context. If you haven't seen it, the video features a few fun segments with my fiance Erin, who, besides being absolutely wonderful and amazing and beautiful, can be a bit too judgy about how long I take to clear the trash. Y'all did not back me up in the comments on that one. Thanks for that. Grudge is being held. These segments in the video were meant to break up different sections and also provide comic relief, yet there was also a deeper intention behind those sections. It was meant to contrast a topic that I was discussing in the video: how trans people are constantly dehumanized through simplified binary narratives. The video ends on a final point where I discuss how trans issues and people constantly get reduced to memes and culture war conflicts, whether you're for us or against us. Rarely get to succeed, exist, or discuss our struggles on our own terms. Instead, stories that talk about us emphasize either our vilification or our fight against adversity, especially the adversity that doesn't implicate the larger hegemonic culture, but individuals like Musk, Rowling, or Trump. But more importantly, I also talked about how we, trans people, rarely get to exist on our own terms beyond stories of how we're villains or oppressed. But true success and recognition should come from a genuine acknowledgement of our contributions and identities, of which there are many. The bigots get to define the terms of engagement on how trans people are viewed and how we talk about us, or how we even educate about trans people, even when we're platformed by people who think these bigots are entirely in the wrong. The very fact that the issue of our existence and how we live and how we think about trans people is up for debate on their terms that they set is the entire issue. And the problem is that we constantly fight under the terms set by systems that were never built to enable us. Keep that in mind, by the way. True success is about acknowledging our and other marginalized people's contributions and joys on our own terms, and building spaces where we celebrate each other and what we care about, not just spaces that fight back against bigots. We center on that and then push further and further outwards. We build, not just fight back, even if fighting back is also important. And that is why I gave Erin the spotlight within my video to share her love of sports in these segments free from culture or baggage.
You go.
No, this is your, I'm not gonna take over for you.
No, you go.
Okay, fine, if you're gonna be so polite. In baseball, they have one person on the bases to start extra innings.
I don't know what, she was nervous before coming on. I don't know what I've unleashed.
I don't know either, Star. You put me in front of the camera and just things keep on going.
All of this was about showing her love for a thing and also me getting a chance to show why I love her, and why both of those things have nothing to do with endless culture war conflicts. And to build on that and end on a hopeful note in the video, as I always try to do with my work, I closed out with a kiss. To end on a note of trans joy, as well as to fuck with the transphobes, I am going to make out with my fiance for an awkwardly long time as the names of my patrons who enable me to support myself, feed this smart gal who's right off camera, and our 3 lovely feline children, and chase my dreams go by. The whole point was getting a moment to share my love with her publicly with all of you, and as well promote my Patreon at the same time. It was meant to be thematic, funny, and I hope poignant. But what our kiss wasn't, either in framing or in content, was sexual or pornographic. And that may seem obvious when it's heterosexual couples kissing, but when it's 2 women or 2 trans people kissing, it's often perceived as inherently sexual because trans people's and women's bodies are hypersexualized. 2 women, cis or trans, kissing is already seen as like an inherently sexual, fetishistic thing. Even showing cleavage like I do in that video is seen as a sexual provocation. Now, to be fair and balanced, I'm stealing that from some more news, the kiss was overly long. But to my mind, the length of a kiss doesn't make it sexual or not. I mean, what is the line between casual and sexual in a 2-second kiss or a 15-second one? And on top of that, the entire point of the overlong length of the kiss was it was being framed as comically long, not increasingly sexual. Believe me, if you saw Erin and I get sexual, you would know it. You would definitely know it. Some people did express distaste for the kiss in the comments and elsewhere, and while some of that disgust might be rooted in transphobia, I do give space for people who find public displays of affection to be something that bothers them generally. I mean, shout out to romance-averse aspec folks, you're legit and cool and kick-ass, and I adore you and you are welcome here. But if the kiss in that video made you want to skip the video, or at the very least skip that part of the video, that's entirely valid and cool. My content, or every part of my content, doesn't have to be for you. That's chill, you don't owe me a view. But your feelings do not make something sexual. On the flip side, if you find me attractive or sexy, and believe me, I've gotten emails from some of you that prove that you do find me that, and I'm cool with it, I take it as a compliment, but that doesn't turn the video or our kissing into something sexual because someone else finds me sexy. The choice of if you find me sexy or our kiss sexy is on you. It is not the intent nor the framing of the video. And I even want to put this out there, even if you think the kiss was spicy, which again, it wasn't, I want to ask you, does it deserve an 18+ rating? What an age gate is saying when it happens is that a video or part of it is adult, unartistic, uneducational, and bordering on pornographic. And for me, I have seen PG-13 movies with way spicier kisses between straight couples. So to frame our kiss like that, to sexualize it, feeds into the same dehumanizing rhetoric that is constantly used against trans people, queer people, and women generally, and honestly just marginalized people. I'd highly recommend the book Sexed Up, which talks about how marginalized people's bodies are inherently sexualized in order to marginalize us. And it's the same rhetoric my video is actively fighting against. So if YouTube is labeling our kiss as lewd or adult content, it's not just ironic, it's outright discriminatory, and that is damaging to my reputation, my income, and my career. Not to mention deeply insulting to me and my fiance. But to remind you all, after everything I just explained to you, the problem is I didn't even know at that time if me kissing my fiance or any of the other 3 issues were the problem and what caused the age gate because YouTube didn't bother telling me. So, I wrote out a professional letter explaining why none of the 4 possible reasons for the age gate made sense in my mind. I even acknowledged in that letter that if it was the kiss, that maybe it wasn't an intentional discrimination on YouTube's part, but maybe an implicit bias coming from a knee-jerk decision made by an employee who has to make dozens of these types of decisions a day. That is me trying my best to assume best possible intent on YouTube's part. Still, it would be dehumanizing, and regardless, I wanted the age gate corrected. But guess what? After 2 years, YouTube still won't let me explain my reasoning in an appeal. When I went to appeal the age gate, all I got was a button that said appeal. I couldn't even submit my letter for what I was guessing the age gate was. Their policy page claims that you can submit reasoning, but I never saw that option. So either I got hit with a glitch, they haven't extended it to my channel yet, or their help page is just flat out wrong. But regardless, it's something that I dealt with and I can only speak from my experience. And my experience is angering. So I clicked the appeal button, and to put a cherry on top of all of this, I got a denial of my appeal in less than 5 minutes. Let me be clear on this, there is absolutely no way they reviewed my video with the thought necessary in that little a time. Especially because I wasn't allowed to submit my reasoning. It's infuriating because what likely happened was someone at YouTube saw the appeal pop up, looked at the initial reasoning, which I don't know, for the age gate, and with no arguments against it, hit nope, with the same implicit bias as the first time they submitted the age gate. That's apparently the kind of attention that my work is worth, if it even gets passed through the hands of a human at all, because it is very possible that a computer dealt with both the initial gate and the appeal. And everything I've been talking about when it comes to implicit bias goes double for algorithms. We have seen repeatedly over not just the past year as the tech culture fad of the moment machine learning generative AI has put on clear display, but over years of YouTube's algorithms that machines repeatedly learn the biases of the dominant culture, because they are more often than not trained on data selected by an industry that is itself predominantly white, cisgender, heterosexual, and male dominated. We'll come back to that, but I'd highly recommend this book for more on that topic. But at the end of the day, either way, I'm pissed because I spend a lot of work on my videos. I spend a lot of time trying to put artistry, care, and thought into them, and apparently all it warrants is 3 seconds of from YouTube. And that's me being professional. And if this situation happened to most creators, this is where they'd be stuck. However, luckily, I have 3 options that many don't. First, I do have contacts at YouTube who can escalate the issue, though they can't influence the outcome, which frankly is probably for the best as they would have their own bias going in. The second thing I can do is go public about this on YouTube and other social media sites, which did at the time get me vague promises from YouTube's Twitter team, which doesn't really add much tangible but does put on some public pressure. But the third and most effective option, especially when combined with the other 2, is my association with Nebula, the streaming service that I'm on. For those of you who don't know, Nebula is a creator-owned streaming service with a bunch of really cool creators on it, and it as a company has its own connections with YouTube and has itself consistently supported me as a creator on its platform, especially a creator who is from a marginalized community. And it was thanks to them that I finally got a response from YouTube outside of an auto-generated email. Earnestly, I know I have a vested interest in Nebula, but just speaking from a personal level, Nebula's team has been one of the most supportive groups of people that I've had in both this industry and in filmmaking, which are 2 industries known for their desire to exploit rather than support creators. The folks there have been a constant force for working to keep my focus on creative projects and help enabling what I want to do and enabling what I want to say. So, Nebula kicks ass. Please support them. However, I do want to take this moment to again emphasize that most creators do not have access to the resources that I do. Most creators are not on Nebula. Most creators do not have a big social media presence. Most creators don't have friends at YouTube. And they shouldn't need these resources to get things done on this platform, but often they do. As a result, many, if they had a situation like this happen to them, would have to live with an age gate or spend time re-editing and re-uploading a video, which would cause it to lose momentum and viewers. Or they would ultimately have to lawyer up, which good luck fighting Google's lawyers with a creator's salary. And it's frankly ridiculous that those are the only options, especially if you rely on YouTube for income, and especially if what you face might be discrimination. However, In my case, after 48 hours, public pressure, and Nebula's support, YouTube finally removed the age gate and admitted that they got it wrong. Yeah, they admitted that they were wrong in this situation, which is great. But by that point, my video had dropped from being my best performing video over the past few months to merely average, and it frankly hasn't recovered. And while I appreciate the resolution, I am not grateful to YouTube for fixing a problem that they caused and doubled down on when I took the typical appeal route. But what angers me most about the whole situation is the response that I received from YouTube about this through Nebula.
Good news! We have reviewed the video you appealed and determined that it does not violate our community guidelines. Explicit content meant to be sexually gratifying is not allowed on YouTube. Posting pornography may result in content removal or channel termination. Videos containing fetish content will be removed or age restricted. In most cases, violent, graphic, or humiliating fetishes are not allowed on YouTube. Your video was flagged by the community and has been reviewed by our enforcement team. Upon further review, we determined that your content doesn't violate our guidelines and have reinstated your video. Any actions taken against your account have also been reversed, so there should be no termination or penalty against your account based on this takedown.
YouTube's response there, while minimal, reveals some disturbing things to me. The first thing is they claim the age gate was triggered by a flag from the community. Now, this flag could have been caused by anything. It could have been from a genuine concern from someone bothered by my kiss. It could have been a bad faith report from an anti-trans critic of my J.K. Rowling critique. Or it even could have been a mass flagging by bigoted groups trying to weaponize systemic biases against marginalized creators, something that is happening more and more and more lately, which we'll talk about later. Regardless of the motive of the flag, though, YouTube is the one that chooses when these flags result in an age gate. They set the rules and decide when and how to enforce them. A flag just draws their attention to look at something. So, if YouTube acknowledges now that my video does not violate their policy, why did they trigger it? It's disingenuous to shift blame onto a vague community when ultimately it's YouTube's responsibility to manage and interpret these reports. And this raises numerous questions. Why was the age gate instigated in the first place if you now admit that it wasn't worth an age gate in the first place? Why couldn't I submit a defense with my initial appeal? Why was my appeal denied in less than 5 minutes without a proper review, especially if it wasn't a clear-cut and dry case of someone uploading pornography or something? What would I have done if I didn't have Nebula's support in this situation? Moreover, considering that trans and marginalized creators frequently face false reporting and biased responses due to cultural prejudices, why hasn't YouTube, after years of feedback and outcry from queer and trans and other marginalized creators, learned to handle these issues fairly and make sure that there are mechanisms in place so that this does not happen? On top of all of this, though, Nebula also pointed out something alarming to me that I missed in the initial statement. YouTube's response mentions a community guideline violation, not an age gate. A community violation is a much more serious issue because it could lead to a strike on my channel, and 3 strikes and your channel gets deleted. So now I have to ask the question based on their response: what did I break, YouTube? Was the violation an age gate issue, or did I break a community guideline? The confusion around this response that was given to Nebula around what happened to my video is concerning to me. Was this response to Nebula incompetence, a lack of human involvement, or that I might have been flagged for a community guideline that was turned into an age gate that YouTube now admits was wrong? More importantly though, YouTube still hasn't told me the specific issue that initiated the age gate in the first place. They do confirm that it was supposedly due to sexually gratifying material, but they don't specify what. And to me, that lack of clarity makes it seem like YouTube is trying to not directly confirm that they legitimized a prejudiced view of a trans woman as inherently sexual. In short, it is very possible that they're trying not to confirm that they discriminated against me as a trans person. It may not be the case. I am willing to admit that that may not be the case, but I don't know because they aren't telling me. And considering that I asked Nebula to request that information specifically, and YouTube has been upfront with me in both the past and in a situation that we'll get to in just a moment, the fact that they don't and haven't now lends more credence to that possibility. And if it's not YouTube, please let me know, but what am I left to assume? What do I have to assume for my career and safety as a creator? I want to presume the best possible intent in the situation, but I also have to be aware that that isn't always the case. And all of this makes me Very angry. Angry that this happened, angry that it only got resolved because I had access to resources that most creators don't, especially creators like me, and angry that it may have been discrimination and I don't even know for sure. But most of all, I'm angry because I've been here before. 2 years ago, as I alluded to at the top of this video, YouTube gave me a community violation on a video that I made debunking anti-trans bigot, stochastic terrorist, and Daily Wire host Matt Walsh's anti-trans propaganda film, What is a Woman? The community violation came because I apparently sexualized Matt Walsh after I, in a parody of his own movie poster and visuals, stuck his head on a female mannequin. And I remember sitting there in that moment at that time and being so angry because of the transparent hypocrisy. Matt Walsh, both then and to this day, still has a YouTube channel with millions of subscribers where he sexualizes transgender bodies, calls us fetishes, perverted, sexual groomers, pornographic, pretty much daily, and regularly leads harassment and stochastic terror campaigns against not just trans people, but queer people generally, and even children's hospitals. Yes, children's hospitals have received bomb threats because of the harassment campaigns this man has stoked on anti-trans and queer-phobic fervor.
Now, if it seems like they're casting the widest imaginable net in order to catch the most children they can and put them all on a path to sterilization and butchery before they can even talk, well, that's because that's exactly what these monsters are doing. And they've done it up until this moment without much resistance from the public. But that has to end. We have to stop making it so easy on them.
Trans people regularly receive waves of harassment based on this man and his company, the Daily Wire. And that's just trans people, not to mention all the other bigoted and reductive views he and his company works to spew. Yet his channel and company can keep pumping out hateful content here on YouTube. They can buy ads from YouTube for their awful movies that can't even grasp basic film grammar and script structure, films where Matt Walsh's costume looks worse than my mannequin of him, and they can continue to spread active disinformation willy-nilly. All of these things violate YouTube's guidelines. I mean, just on the basis that he sexualizes trans people repeatedly, he's breaking YouTube's policy. And we know for a fact that he's breaking YouTube's policy because YouTube briefly demonetized his channel when he targeted Dylan Mulvaney a year or so ago when she was in the middle of a massive harassment campaign stoked in part by folks like Matt Walsh and the Daily Wire.
Less than a day before I was hacked, we received word from YouTube that I had committed a series of alleged violations of their terms of service and also of their ad partnership guidelines, which will now lead to my demonetization and potentially being banished forever from the platform.
YouTube at that time had to acknowledge that he was breaking their policy because the harassment campaign was so blatant in its bad faith, dehumanizing, childish transphobia against Dylan Mulvaney that it couldn't be ignored. But guess what? Despite briefly being demonetized, his channel is back to being fully monetized. You can go look at it now, and there's ads on every single one of his videos. And the Daily Wire is still buying ads from YouTube to promote their films. They just recently promoted Matt Walsh's Am I a Racist? Spoiler, he is. And why are they still on to do this? Why is their channel still on here? Because YouTube profits humongously from places like the Daily Wire. Their channels are gigantic, especially compared to someone like me. So YouTube can pocket the dollars from the Daily Wire and assuage their guilt in enabling their harassment because outside of gigantic public harassment campaigns, no one sees sexualizing transgender people as abnormal. It's just par for the course. It's expected. Not to mention that YouTube itself may be contributing to this sexualized view of trans people as my AgeGate situation shows. Meanwhile, if I sexualize Matt Walsh by parroting what he's doing, I'm the one that has a community violation. I'm the one that faces my channel itself being completely deleted, not just demonetized. But let's not stop at that evident hypocrisy, because I have only been talking so far in this video about one situation that I faced this month. Let's move on to another one that also involves the Daily Wire. Because ironically and coincidentally, just as I started working on writing this video, the Daily Wire hit my 2-year-old video debunking Matt Walsh's anti-trans propaganda film, What is a Woman?, the same one that got the community violation earlier, with a copyright claim blocking the video from appearing on YouTube. Yes, they copyright claimed a 2-year-old video. Now, what a copyright claim is doing is saying that my video is basically taking their content and shooting it back out to make money for myself when it should rightfully be going to them because they produced the content. However, my video and my use of clips from Matt Walsh's What is a Woman documentary clearly falls under fair use guidelines under the law. To fall into fair use, you have to change the intent and context of a work to make it something different than what it initially was. And I am very clearly doing that in my video. I am discussing Matt Walsh's misinformation in the video and using clips from it to talk about it directly. Yet, despite my video clearly being legal, the Daily Wire was still able to take it down from the internet. And that video was my most successful video ever on this channel. It was about to reach 1 million views. And it's how many people were able to find my channel. Videos that have a high view count often come up higher when people search for things, thereby it making it more likely for people to discover my channel. But now, thanks to the Daily Wire, another entire chunk of my income and visibility, people being able to find my channel, is just gone. Now the question becomes, why now after 2 years? More than likely, it was probably done because Matt Walsh has just dropped his new follow-up documentary to What is a Woman, Am I Racist? And my video would have likely shown up when people searched for his name or that movie. And the Daily Wire definitely can't have that. They don't want people to see a trans woman calling out their lies before they get sucked into Matt Walsh's echo chamber, because that's their entire game. Keeping people trapped in a cycle of right-wing propaganda by cutting off access to actual informed perspectives. And with Am I Racist hitting theaters, they probably have a hope that it will bring in a brand new audience into said echo chamber. So, by abusing YouTube's copyright system, the Daily Wire is not just silencing me, they're ensuring people stay stuck in their misinformation bubble, never getting a chance to see anything outside of their hateful worldview. Similarly, my friend Dead Domain had their video critiquing the Daily Wire movie Lady Ballers blocked, forcing them to re-upload it and lose what was, until then, the top search ranking for the film on YouTube. A similar situation to my video on What is a Woman. It's funny because Matt Walsh recently went on his channel to complain that no critics were willing to review his film.
They're terrified to even mention a film that mocks the DEI industry because they know that the DEI industry can only survive if no one is allowed to question it. Also, our movie is actually good. And I think that's what scares them the most. And I know that sounds self-serving, saying that critics aren't reviewing it because it's too good sounds like some grade A hardcore cope. But in this case, it's true. And I invite any critic to challenge me on that point just by reviewing the film.
Challenge accepted, by the way. I did review his film. It's over on my second channel. But this is made even funnier considering my video on What is a Woman was my official submission to Rotten Tomatoes as a critic for my review of his film. I was the only one at the time to give him a Rotten Tomatoes score. So it's hypocritical of Matt to come out and play victim to his audience when, in truth, most critics probably just didn't care enough about his film to review it, while his company at the same time in turn censors critics who do review his film. But that's how his company operates. He wants to play the victim to his audience in order to build an antagonistic us versus them narrative, which is something that we'll be coming back to later on in this video. But this abuse of the copyright system isn't just a problem for me or marginalized creators like me, it's something that every creator deals with, and it is draining. Take, for example, another situation on the same video. Because while I was appealing the Daily Wire's bogus copyright claim of me, the International Olympics Committee hit me with a copyright strike on the same video. A copyright strike is very similar to a community violation in that if you have 3 of them, you're gone, and it also completely removes the video from YouTube at all. Now, why was the International Olympics Committee able to do this to my video? Because I used 10 seconds of footage from the 2020 Tokyo Olympics during a section in my 4-hour video in a segment where I discuss trans athletes at the Olympics. I would very much argue that my 10-second clip would also fall under fair use, given that I'm changing the context and discussing the clip at hand. That tiny clip, though, was able to get my entire video wiped off of YouTube and now possibly may lead to a deletion of my channel. Again, all of this for 10 seconds of footage in a 4-hour video that's been up for 2 years. And I want to dive deeper into it, because it's a problem that is ubiquitous across this platform. The claim on my channel was made on behalf of the IOC from a company called Friends MTS, which the International Olympics Committee hired for them. Friends MTS is an anti-piracy firm that makes copyright claims on YouTube. And the goal of their company on the website claims to, quote,
reduce churn, uncover new revenue streams, and engage with diverted audiences.
In fact, their direct pitch to their clients is that they will
take down pirates, disrupt their operations, block their audiences, and see your revenues increase.
It's very clear that Friends MTS's goal is not to protect copyright or follow the law, but to make profit for themselves and the people that they're hired by. In many cases, to do this, they clearly prey on creators by abusing YouTube's copyright systems. They hunt down creators like me who can't afford to fight back legally and falsely claim their videos despite them being fair use, and will take all of the money and proceeds from the video from the creator over anything from 2 seconds to 10 seconds of footage, regardless of the length of the actual video. My only option right now to fight back against this copyright strike would be to take them to court. To explain how the legal side of this works, once an appeal of a copyright dispute rejection is denied, your channel gets a copyright strike and your video is officially taken down. At that point, you can either contact the claim holder directly and deal with them that way, or submit a counter notification through YouTube's system, which would be an official legal request to reinstate the removed video. The original copyright claimant then has 10 days to tell YouTube that they are pursuing legal action against you. If they fail to do so in that time, the strike is removed and the video goes back up. However, if they choose to begin a legal process, YouTube upholds the strike and the video takedown, but has no part in the two parties going to court. Instead, it waits for the court to work it out. A quick update on this situation too, because while I was editing this video, I also chose to re-upload my original What is a Woman video with the copyright striked content from the International Olympics Committee removed. Not because I believed it wasn't fair use, but because it was only 10 seconds of the video and easily removed. However, every time I re-uploaded this newly edited video, it was blocked several hours after I uploaded it for clips from What is a Woman by a company called SVG Sports and Entertainment. And since I've had a few people ask, and even some more accuse me of falsely claiming that the Daily Wire is claiming my videos because it's SVG Sports and Entertainment and not the Daily Wire doing the claiming, let me break it down real quick. From what I found, SVG Sports and Entertainment is a content ID management service like the aforementioned Friends MTS that services different clients. They've also been the same ones that have copyright claimed other Daily Wire videos in the past from other creators, bringing down those videos. They also, on my video, are directly claiming the What is a Woman footage. So while I can't be 100% sure that the Daily Wire is one of SVG Sports and Entertainment's clients, as they don't promote them as a client on their website like they do, say, other clients like Settlers of Catan, I wonder why, they are indeed acting on behalf of the Daily Wire in terms of the copyright claims that they are making, and are likely doing so at the direct direction of the Daily Wire. So it's just someone hired by the Daily Wire, it's just one step removed. However, when I uploaded the video on a Friday, it went through and I re-released the video, and it was fine for the entire weekend. Then it was blocked again early Monday morning, killing its algorithm momentum. This tells me that not only is SVG Sports and Entertainment, on behalf of the Daily Wire's content, abusing copyright claims, but they're also actively seeking to target channels to do it, with them checking my channel when they come into work on weekdays in order to block it. My initial reaction to this copyright claim was to maybe just delete the claimed section, as YouTube's backend system sometimes allows you to do it in these cases to allow the video to go live with the content removed. However, SVG Sports and Entertainment claimed several hours of footage from my video, including sections of my video that are my own original footage. So my only recourse if I want the video to become public again is to waste a significant amount of time re-editing it to make it worse, or go to a dispute and possible appeal. I'm a direct victim of active targeting and wielding of YouTube's copyright system to hurt my income and platform by those who platform the Daily Wire's content. I am currently planning to dispute the decision, but given the Daily Wire's history of targeting trans creators, I am reaching out to legal counsel to determine the best course of action. And hey, just to say it, my uncensored video is available on Nebula and my Patreon, and signing up there really helps me out to pay my lawyer. And as the situation develops, I will share more information publicly as I can, if I haven't already by the time this video is released. And Friends MTS is just one company that's doing this on a massive scale, but it happens all over YouTube, big or small. There are tons of bad faith claims being done by YouTube's copyright systems that straight up steal monetization over seconds of fair use footage from creators. There are big companies that do this, like Friends MTS, or there are other firms like PicRight, which is another copyright enforcement company, that intimidate small creators in order to get money out of them. And this doesn't just happen on YouTube. There are tons of stories of law firms hired by places like Reuters who shotgun out hundreds of letters to small creators who may have used an image on a blog or something like that, that demand hundreds of dollars, the same amount of money that would cost to hire a legal consultation, to force creators to pay out of fear. But what's unique in this case is that YouTube's entire copyright system is built to give companies like that and other people making bad faith claims all of the power in the situation, leaving creators in the dust. Even when it's working as intended to stop the uploading of copyrighted material without any changes, it still punishes good faith creators operating under fair use. Often, AI automatically flags content without human input as soon as a content creator uploads, or low-level employees at companies like Warner Brothers or Disney issue claims without fully reviewing the videos once they go up, ultimately leading to stolen monetization from creators. When this happens, creators have to appeal to the same copyright holders who filed the claim, who often deny it, forcing creators to either have their monetization stolen or their video blocked, or they must submit a second appeal to the same copyright holders that could lead eventually to a copyright strike if they again turn it down. During which time their money is either taken or put in escrow. And both of the decisions in those appeals are up to the copyright claiming company themselves. Yes, the company making the copyright claim are the ones that get to decide if an appeal of fair use is accurate or not. They get all of the power, and the only recourse you have after those two appeals are to go to court, which many creators cannot do. And even if they were able to go to court in the meantime, their videos on their channel are blocked or not getting them any money that they need to pay their bills with. I mean, just recently, my friend and fellow podcast host, Council of Geeks, got several copyright claims on her channel for several videos where she used Doctor Who footage on her Doctor Who focused channel. Her videos on Doctor Who when Doctor Who is airing are where she makes a ton of her money every year. So for her to lose those videos distinctly hurts her income. And yet, those claims were able to be done by the BBC because YouTube enables it, and she has very little recourse on fighting back. She had to lose those videos, re-upload them, and make them objectively worse because she wasn't allowed to use footage from the shows to make her points clearer. YouTube systems are actively degrading content on this platform. It also should be noted that my friend Vera has been outstandingly vocal against the BBC for its anti-trans bias in its news arm coverage. And it's the same company that owns Doctor Who, by the way. I'm just talking about companies here, and while I won't get into it, there have been numerous instances where specific creators have weaponized the copyright claim system to silence critics of them. Very similar to what the Daily Wire tried to do to me, though on a less corporatized level. Take YouTuber Lily Orchard. I'm not going to get into topics surrounding why she has been criticized by others because that's a whole different rabbit hole, but regardless, Lily has been open on her Tumblr about how she deliberately uses YouTube's copyright claim system to target critics of her. She has also publicly referred to using copyright strikes as, quote, 10-day timeouts to creators critiquing her.
That's all right. She'll do another response. She'll do another response video to my video on Nom Nom Nami, and I'll send her for another 10-day streaming timeout.
This basically means that she uses copyright strikes against creators with zero intention of following up legally. Instead, she allegedly intimidates creators with these strikes, and when they follow up by beginning a legal process, she simply lets the clock on YouTube's legal backend timer run out until the creator's video is allowed to go up after at least 10 days of waiting, making the creator lose all income and momentum with their video in the algorithm during that time. Every size of platform, big or small, abuses the copyright system YouTube has established with few repercussions, and zero ability for many creators to fight back against it. And YouTube gets to wash its hands of all of this because, well, copyright claim isn't our issue. It's not our problem. We just built the system for it. To be fair to YouTube, the copyright system that they have put in place has been set up to prevent creators and copyright holders from having to go directly to a legal process whenever an issue of fair use or copyright comes up. It was set up years ago in an attempt to facilitate some form of intermediary system while also allowing YouTube to protect itself from having to intervene directly and thus open itself to legal liability. And I appreciate that difficult place that YouTube is in legally as a result. YouTuber Tom Scott made a great video a couple of years ago on the problems and abuses with copyright law, talking about how it's a much more systemic problem that extends outside of YouTube itself. However, given the clear ability to abuse YouTube's system for intimidation and silencing, as I've discussed, I do feel that YouTube has some duty to provide a better system that actually protects creators rather than forcing them to gamble with their livelihoods or hire lawyers due to bad faith actors or strong-arming copyright holders using a copyright system that directly gives all the power to them. It should be the duty of the copyright holder to provide arguments that their claim isn't fair use and breaks the law, rather than creators being punished so they are forced to argue to the copyright holder themselves that their claim is fair use. And look, I want to be clear, protecting copyright does actually matter. We saw very clearly recently why it matters in situations like James Somerton's plagiarism, which is an also rampant issue here on YouTube. As H-Bomber-Guy's fantastic video showed, creators like James Somerton easily steal content from various sources with zero repercussions. But despite all the hubbub over H-Bomber-Guy's wonderful work and the public shaming of specific figures like Somerton or Illuminati off the internet, there hasn't been any change from anyone at YouTube or really anywhere else to set any standards on people stealing content from others at all. All I've seen is some creators in my sphere saying that we'll hold each other accountable, which is really nice. But it does nothing for creators who have no desire to hold themselves accountable and wish to just steal whatever they want. How can I or anyone else hold a grifter to account whose audience doesn't give a shit or respect or care about plagiarism in the first place? Yet, despite that clear breaching of copyright claim, YouTube does nothing about it. The only tools that we have are things like public shaming, as we saw in James Somerton's case. H-Bomber-Guy never called for one, by the way. And public shaming is a very dangerous tool to use. Again, sorry to keep using him, but James Somerton faked a suicide attempt to manipulate sympathy and vilify creators like me and H-Bomber-Guy for calling him out. He's an absolute liar and a shit person, but his fake crisis could have been real. We should not be relying on public shaming campaigns, which can quickly turn into harassment, to hold people accountable. And again, that's only holding people to account whose audiences will hold them to account. But ultimately, at the end of the day, YouTube has no real interest in stopping plagiarism. In fact, it helps them pump out more content, which means they get to have more ad revenue. In fact, they're in on the plagiarism. Which gets me to situation number 3. Just a little while ago, the New York Times released a story that revealed that companies like OpenAI have been stealing YouTubers' work. OpenAI has been scraping the transcripts of YouTubers' videos in order to train their generative AI programs like ChatGPT. On top of that, Proof News examined a training dataset of YouTube videos from companies like Anthropic, NVIDIA, Apple, and Salesforce, found that they had scraped the subtitles files of 173,000 YouTube videos. Videos from people who are my peers and friends, like Abigail Thorne of PhilosophyTube, Maggie May Fish, NerdSync, and even one of my own videos were used to train AI, without my permission or consent. Both the amazing Tom Nicholas and NerdSync recently made videos on this exact topic that go into much greater depth about the dangers of scraping creators' work for AI algorithms, effects that go well beyond individual creators and can hurt the platforms like YouTube themselves, and will disproportionately affect marginalized creators. What's even worse is Google, which owns YouTube, allegedly knew about it and did nothing because they're doing the same thing. Stealing content from YouTube to train their own AI, violating our copyrights as creators. So my work can be stolen by big companies like YouTube. Other creators' work can be stolen by larger creators like James Somerton, and there are no standards set in place. And yet, big companies are allowed to abuse YouTube's own copyright system to steal money from creators who are doing earnest work. And I want to be clear, it is creators like us, marginalized creators, that are hit the hardest. Because YouTube simply cares less about protecting us because society generally cares less. Bigger channels like Somewhere News, which I love by the way, adore Somewhere News so much, but they can cover the same topics like the Lady Ballers video that Dead Domain did without facing the same repercussions from the Daily Wire stealing their money, because the Daily Wire knows that going after another news organization, that becomes a newsworthy story. But the Daily Wire or the BBC disenfranchising a trans creator is just called a Tuesday. I've been getting very angry at YouTube throughout this whole video, but I want to be clear and not uncharitable to YouTube. I understand why some of these systems have been put in place in the way that they have, and what they are here to do. But YouTube has repeatedly shown that they don't view these systems as ways to uplift and enable creators like they claim they are, but are just there to protect themselves. Their quote-unquote neutral systems lack protections for creators, making it easy for these systems, whether used for intentional maliciousness or not, to reinforce dominant power structures and implicit biases. Which ultimately brings me to my last situation that I'm going to talk about. Because, yet again, after my J.K. Rowling video, I had another age gate happen on another video just this month. After my J.K. Rowling video, I released another video called Dreaming of a Queer Internet, which frankly, I think is one of the best videos that I've ever done on this channel. I think it's one of the most creative, unique, and just visually interesting videos that I've ever done with one of the most important things that I've had to say. I've honestly been getting a lot of really cool response to that video from a lot of you. And that video just meant the world to me and was so fulfilling as an artistic work, which is why I was so frankly just defeated when that video itself also got an age gate on it. Interestingly though, in contrast to the J.K. Rowling video, this time they actually gave me citations for why the video was age gated. The stark contrast here suggests that they're not telling me the reason for the earlier age gate on my Rowling video because they may be trying to cover for the fact that they discriminated against me. And what they cited specifically was a moment in my video where I show a clip from the movie Videodrome where you can see actor James Woods' butt. And to be very clear, I totally understand why an age gate happened here. Not saying I agree with it, but we're seeing some butt. And that directly goes along very clearly with the nudity aspect of the age gate guidelines. And even beyond that butt, in that brief about 5-minute section of the video, there's a couple shots of censored nudity and body horror from that same film. I mean, James Woods' butt isn't sexual in any context, but I at least understand why YouTube might argue that an age gate is appropriate given those clips. But that said, personally, I believe that I can argue that they aren't deserving of an age gate. And my argument would be on the basis that YouTube's own policy says that age restriction is for content meant to sexually arouse or that's graphic or lewd. Now, it's very clear that their policy is meant to directly target porn, not a movie like Videodrome, which, while a movie about the increase in sexual and graphic content in media in the 1980s, isn't designed or meant to arouse in and of itself. It is a movie about critiquing that. And to critique it, it has to display it in its own artistic body horror form. That's the theme of the movie. So on that basis alone, I would argue that this content isn't meant to be sexually arousing. On top of that though, as I mentioned before, YouTube's own policy allows nudity when it's in an educational context and as long as it's not gratuitous.
We actually allow nudity when the primary purpose is educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic.
Which is exactly what my usage of the footage from Videodrome is doing with it. I am recontextualizing the footage to be educational. What do I mean by this? Well, let's look at an example from YouTube's own policy of when an educational exception for nudity should apply.
For example, a film with a sex scene may be allowed if it included details such as the name of the film, director, actors, in the video content and in the video description. Remember that giving context in the content, title, and description will help us and your viewers determine the primary purpose of the video.
In my case, for my video, Dreaming of a Queer Internet, in the section where I am showing the nudity from Videodrome, I'm not just tossing it in for spicy B-roll for the sake of it. I'm analyzing at that specific moment the visual symbolism of the movie. I'm talking about why James Woods has a yonic orifice on his chest. I'm talking about why the movie Videodrome is showing sexually explicit content. I also, as they state in their policy, explicitly mention David Cronenberg, James Woods, and the movie both in the video itself and the description, ensuring that I am providing context for these images. It's not just something that I'm showing up removed from its context to make it become pornographic. Year before Gibson imagined cyberspace through the language of TV, David Cronenberg's 1983 masterpiece Videodrome explored the merging of technology and body. The imagery that I'm using is crucial to the academic analysis that I'm presenting in the video, where I'm discussing the film's take on the internet and technology through a queer lens. Content, by the way, that I am censoring so as to remove any gratuitous aspect from the visuals outside of what I need to be talking about. I am being very intentional with the images that I'm showing. For instance, I do show the movie's sadomasochistic scenes, but censor the woman's genitals and breasts in that image because while the imagery is relevant to my analysis, showing that specific aspect of nudity is not. I remove as much as I possibly can to still make the point that I am making. I am also talking about the body horror on display in the film and what it's meant to symbolize. They are critical to my points. And to me, all of this clearly fits under the educational content exception under the age gate policy, which is supposed to separate random clips thrown online from genuine academic analysis. And on top of that, I would argue that my video is 100% artistic as well. There is artistic intent throughout the video, such as when I show images on a TV screen in the video and when I don't. And it's intentionally supposed to underscore my themes symbolically. Again, I choose my visuals very carefully, not flippantly, and with artistic and academic care and intent, and it is not meant to sexually arouse. But I understand that is a nuanced issue that requires discussion. And I'm more than willing to have that conversation and make that argument as an artist and creator on YouTube to YouTube itself. I can understand why the age gate happened. Why, when you see James Woods' butt in a video, that you might go, oh, that requires an age gate. But what's infuriating to me is that I appealed this again, and I was again unable to provide any context or any of my argument, and I got a denial in 10 minutes, which is more time at least than my J.K. Rowling video got, so apparently James Woods' ass gets more scrutiny than my fiance and me kissing. But when I got that denial of my appeal back, that appeal cited the 12-minute mark as another reason for the age gate. Let me show you what the shot is at 12 minutes in my video. Please tell me where the nudity is in this. What this response to my appeal tells me is that either no human reviewed this appeal, or whoever did so was so lazy, it's insulting. It's a slap in the face to me as a creator in either way. I worked hard on that video, and YouTube couldn't even be bothered to properly explain the age gate. They didn't listen, they didn't want to listen, didn't care, and frankly just told me that they don't give a fuck about my art. YouTube could have had the discussion with me and still put on the age gate, and I would not have agreed with that decision, but I at least would have felt heard and understood. And while certainly I can't prove this, between this and the other age gate that I got, I can't help but wonder if my videos are more likely to be age gated because, as a trans creator, I'm being hyper scrutinized for sexuality. Would YouTube be giving a cisgender creator this same level of scrutiny? I mean, just a few months ago, I shared numerous images of graphic footage from the ongoing genocide in Gaza, and that video wasn't age-gated at all for graphic content. But now, a video with censored clips of nudity from a 40-year-old movie is age-gated on my channel. YouTube claims to be a platform for creators, but their actions show clear disdain, active disdain for my work. At least if they had cited James Woods' ass again in the appeal response, I'd at least have respected them more for consistency. And then they had the nerve to go on Twitter and say, we're sorry that this isn't the outcome that you expected. No, YouTube, it wasn't the outcome I expected, and I didn't even get a chance to say what I expected to you. I am sitting here, willing to have a professional conversation with you, one that my work deserves. And you just wave me away. Frankly, you give me the finger. It's an insult to me, my career, and my artistry. And so I sit here, 2 years after my first major issue with YouTube, dealing with not only a similar situation of discrimination from YouTube, but 3 separate videos within a month of each other, both of my latest videos and my best performing video ever, that remove my ability as a creator, as an artist, and a marginalized person to speak up for myself. Situations that harm my finances and remove accessibility to my art and my perspective, all behind false claims of sexualization or that I'm some petty thief, all given a sense of legitimacy because the systems that YouTube has put in place. I have to argue my points on their terms, and even then, when I make the argument, I'm not even allowed to be heard. Nothing has changed. It's only gotten worse. 2 years of me speaking out about these issues, expressing my anger and frustration, and nothing has come of it. And now I'm just burning with anger. And how could I not be? How could I not feel targeted and hyper-scrutinized? 3 of my videos in a single month, all thrown into the fire. I'm stuck in a world and system that sees me, my existence, my presence, as a battleground. And it never lets me be anything but furious. And YouTube is just a piece of this. But look at the inferno out there. Look at the violence being aimed at trans people, both systemic and direct. It's a blazing attack against our very existence. My community is being killed and attacked every day. How could anyone not be on fire with rage at that? And that's not even scratching the surface of everything happening in the world right now. I am seething and my anger is fuel. And frankly, it's justified and it's righteous and it's burning me alive. It's consuming me and turning me to ash. Anger is the fuel that and I think so many of us, have been running on a lot lately, hasn't it? Righteous anger. I wake up every morning and there's something to get angry about. A story, a tweet, or a new way corporations are trying to exploit us to push us out of jobs or access to money. Another video showing the genocide happening in Gaza, or another legislation targeted against my community or another marginalized community. Hell, maybe it's just anger at another stupid culture war nonsense bullshit argument against a science fiction TV show. No matter if it's big or small, about things that matter or don't, anger is as much a part of our wake-up routine as brushing our teeth. At least, it is for me. Even in small doses, it's always a tiny flicker. Its embers are constantly being fanned, and it feels like everything is a fight right now, big or small, because anger drives all of this. Those who run these systems knows that this anger fuels clicks, engagement, and money. And that's what YouTube has become, isn't it? A platform that stokes this anxiety, this anger, this constant frustration at all times in order to generate more money for itself. YouTube turns every conversation from pop culture to human rights to being able to make a video into culture war content. Outrage is the currency, and outrage merchants here on YouTube are thriving off of it. Outrage merchants twist emotions, turn everything into a battleground, and narrate every story, whether it's about Hollywood creators, fellow YouTubers, or marginalized people like trans folks like myself, as somehow an attack on their audience. Big YouTubers like Matt Walsh or Nerdrotic or Critical Drinker, who are some big creators in the pop culture space, constantly tell their audience, these people hate you, they're attacking you, they're out to get you.
This is an ideology committed to making your life more miserable. It actively seeks to remove joy from existence. Now, it does this at deeper and more serious levels, demolishing the family, faith, tradition, national identity, all of these being sources of meaning and therefore fulfillment and therefore happiness. But this agenda is enacted closer to the surface too. Don't eat meat, it says. Don't own your own home. Don't drive. Don't use gas stoves. Turn off your air conditioning.
No, and their biggest mistake from the very beginning, and this is the studios and the access media through their fan baiting marketing, is making an enemy out of your customer and your fan.
Yes.
That was their number one mistake. They could protect Kathleen Kennedy all day long. If they didn't say anything derogatory towards the paying customer and the fan, people would have complained, but it would have been over. That was their biggest mistake, and they continue it to this very day, and they use it as part of their marketing.
They manipulate and feed off that outrage to reinforce who's allowed to be seen, who's allowed to speak, and who gets to shape the narrative, and take advantage of the system to do so. And the system rewards them, enables them, while continually allowing the rest of us to get crushed under the weight of their petty, petty grievances. This endless manufactured conflict warps how we connect with art, creators, and each other. And it's exhausting, but the algorithm feeds on it, rewards it, and makes it impossible to escape. We're forced to keep pouring ourselves into this black hole of anger, leaving us empty and hollowed out. And it gets even worse when you yourself are turned into the commodified symbol, an object to be fought over. Despite me trying to focus on being a creator and artist and focusing on the things that I want to make, I've been shoved into that commodified role over and over again. Everything I am, everything I create is reduced to a battlefield. Be it Matt Walsh, be it Critical Drinker, be it some other YouTube content creator. It happened with J.K. Rowling 2 years ago when she targeted me and caused a wave of harassment to come after me over just saying, hey, maybe don't support the bigot who's been attacking trans people for several years. Let me take another example that happened to me very recently, and we're gonna get a bit nerdy because it's me. And this example will touch upon social media platforms outside of YouTube, such as Twitter, but it's important to discuss that because it shows how pervasive this issue is and how creators on YouTube generate their culture war narratives through context removal, harassment, and simplified narratives through use of multiple platforms. But it will just prove the point of how pervasive this issue is. Literally just last week, as of this filming, YouTuber Critical Drinker took a single tweet of mine where I pointed out people used to ship Frodo and Sam in a gay relationship in Lord of the Rings as fans, which was a meme and known section of fandom discourse for decades.
I think Sam and Frodo should have kissed. But why? What? First of all, how do you know they didn't? You know what I mean? It's a long trek to Mordor. We loved the gay fan fiction when it came out. When it came out, like coming out of the closet, oh my gosh. Anyhow, our instinct when the movie came out was just to love that fans embraced the movie and the characters, and so whatever people want to conceptualize for them is fine.
And Critical Drinker twisted that statement into some pathetic claim that I have no friends. But that petty observation and elevation of me as the Eye of Sauron turned to me from his audience became ammunition and justification to harass me endlessly. I had people sending me tweets and messages and all sorts of horrible things because I said, hey, Frodo and Sam, they be gay sometimes, ha ha ha. Because apparently in this situation, me saying that Frodo and Sam used to be shipped in gay situation means I somehow hate or am putting down depictions of healthy male relationships. What? I'm not going to go deep down this rabbit hole because I could talk about it for forever. We could get into some fun Tolkien lore. Believe me, it'd be a good time. But just briefly, gay shipping relationships isn't about being antithetical to heterosexual relationships. Many fans, especially queer fans who historically don't see ourselves in media, interact with works of art that way by reading fictional characters like Frodo and Sam as gay. And they are fictional characters, so we are able to interpret them any way they want. They are not real people. Do not ship real people or like queerbait real people. That's its own whole conversation. And this isn't to say that Tolkien's intention was to depict a potential gay relationship. It's more often noted that he probably wanted to write a relationship that was reflective of his battlefield relationships, his close battlefield relationships with other men in World War I. But that does not mean that his writing was antithetical or against a gay interpretation or feeling. The idea that heterosexual and homosexual feelings are antithetical to each other instead of just part of the same spectrum of human emotion is a way to delineate an us versus them narrative that separates community and dehumanizes all of us. We're seeing it happen right now with folks like the Critical Drinker, saying me talking about gay shipping that fandom has done for years is somehow me attacking strong, platonic male relationships. Also, like, how can you not understand where the Frodo and Sam gay relationship fandom comes from?
But he was her love as well.
I thought I saw something.
I mean, come on. And by the way, if you want a longer, more interesting discussion on queerness within Tolkien, I highly recommend friend of the channel Verily Bitchy's fantastic video on it. But arguments about Tolkien aside, going back to the situation at hand, my tweet was used in an antagonistic binary narrative that was then spread on YouTube, Twitter, in articles, and all over to make an argument that it was gay relationships versus heterosexual relationships. And it goes all the way to the point where YouTubers start making content about my single tweet in responses to it. So much so that the Quartering has his own thumbnail about it.
What I'm saying is don't project it on people that actually isn't.
Look at the way that they frame me, deranged journalist. Which, sorry, I have to say, I do love how he makes me look like some evil Two-Face shoving gay into Critical Drinker's face in there. It's very graphic design is my passion. But ultimately, the goal of all of that harassment and simplification of my words and disinformation is to keep me quiet or to make me out like some ridiculous weirdo who loves shoving gay relationships down people's throat, all for a joke that was old in, I believe, 2004. But ultimately, it's not really about me. The larger point is that they used me, or anyone else that they want to at any point, by taking a single tweet, taking it out of context, blowing it out of proportion, and using it as evidence in their culture war campaign. The goal of this style of low-effort content is to make a quick profit off of the current discourse based on some cartoonish vilified caricature of an individual target, me in this case, usually from a minority group whom they can easily twist the points of to their audience who are often not exposed to differing perspectives or voices and thus can easily misunderstand an out-of-context point that these creators have created to throw into their culture war narrative. And YouTube as a platform uplifts this lazy, baiting content that builds itself on agreement. These grifters also always frame it as if anyone, especially minorities, who doesn't share the same hegemonic, culturally dominant, cishet white supremacist worldview that they're trying to reinforce, must be actively lying to you.
First female dwarf that we will ever see on screen.
This is a lie. The first female dwarf we will ever see on screen. I'm sorry, this is from The Hobbit, the first Hobbit movie. What do we see here? Crazy. 2 dwarven women in The Hobbit. This is from about 10 years ago. 10 years ago this came to screen. You are a liar. Sophia Namvet, you are a fucking liar. You keep repeating this time after time. The media is letting you get away with it. Lie number 1, I guess. I'm sure there will be others.
They always tell their audience that anyone who doesn't agree with them is never being earnest. It's always an agenda. It's always a lie, allowing them to dehumanize their targets for harassment, something I talked more in depth about in a short video on my other channel. If you want another example of generated outrage for clicks leading to harassment that doesn't involve me personally, let's take the recent situation where YouTuber Star Wars Theory featured a Forbes article written by sci-fi author and entertainment journalist Paul Tassi talking about the generated outrage surrounding the series Star Wars The Acolyte. After that video released, Tassi began to receive harassment from Star Wars Theory's audience, and allegedly even got a death threat sent to his phone directly, leading Tassi to state that he had filed a police report. Star Wars Theory then claimed that he was the one being targeted by Tassi, and said he planned to release receipts of how Tassi had targeted him with countless articles. But his second video on the topic could only cite 4 sentences where Tassi mentions Star Wars Theory within a larger context of the Star Wars fandom conflict. Star Wars Theory also claimed that he was getting death threats because of Paul Tassi, but was unable to provide proof while Paul did, showcasing Star Wars Theory's clear hyperbolicism and generation of a narrative that he was being personally attacked by the woke media, represented in this case by Paul Tassi, in order to generate 45 minutes of drama videos for engagement, at the direct expense of Tassi's professional reputation, mental health, and physical safety. And this is one of numerous examples that I could cite. I could go on for literal hours. And this is done constantly on pop culture content on YouTube. This recently hit a tipping point within the Star Wars community space here on YouTube, given how Star Wars is often a target for culture war ire given its ubiquity and how Disney has turned the series into a corporate brand with rarely anything earnest to say. However, outrage merchants take this dilution of Star Wars messages and Disney's willingness to have shallow representation of diverse figures in their media for profit, without actually doing the work to uplift their perspectives, to turn the agreement that their audience may be feeling at this increased diversity into targeting the marginalized creators, such as numerous actors of color on Star Wars who have spoken out about the racist harassment that they have received.
There's nothing anybody can do about this. There's nothing anybody can do to stop this hate.
Galvanized in part by online creators here on YouTube who stoke antagonism, saying that actors of color are lying to you and hate you.
I mean, you remember Christina Ariel, right?
Yes, we do.
The person who was hired by Lucasfilm who had a history of anti-white tweets, and then Star Wars went out of their way to defend all of her racist tweets. Yeah, this is somebody who has a white father. This is someone who started working for Disney at the age of 4 in in their calendars or something, a child model for the calendars. This is never someone who's been oppressed in their fucking life.
Nope.
But
not at all.
I got a white dad who's rich, and that gives me the authority to be a half black bitch. Like, I don't fucking know.
This is what outrage merchants constantly do, and they do it to uphold heteronormative white supremacist norms constantly. They amplify petty, inconsequential drama or get angry about petty nonsense lore in Star Wars in order to stoke anger, all so they can uphold the myth of the separation of identities in a hierarchical male-dominated white supremacist society. But all of this goes back to the idea of manufactured conflicts, and it's intentional and pervasive across YouTube. I've been using pop culture and Lord of the Rings because it's topical and something that I know a lot about, but it's throughout every sphere of this platform. The harassment campaign against Dylan Mulvaney that folks like Matt Walsh took part in is evidence of this. Or we can look at how Matt Walsh, as I mentioned before, argues that woke critics hate his films in order to galvanize his audience into anger. Matt Walsh constantly amplifies harassment against trans creators and other marginalized folks, but it's not just the Matt Walshes or the top Star Wars YouTube channels or pop culture and right-wing content. This style of content is pervasive across all sectors of this platform. I've even talked about in several of my past videos how even in leftist spaces, and again, I identify as a leftist, there's pretty polarized campism that constantly reduces complex systemic issues into simplified good-bad binary narratives, and it removes our ability to understand the systemic structures in place that cause all of it, instead leading us to blame trans people or black people or Muslims or the Jews or individual bad actors. And as a result, it reinforces the very systems that oppress us, making sure that those who already have power get to keep it while we're left scrambling to defend ourselves as we attack each other. Chappell Roan is a great example of how this happens even in supposedly progressive spaces. After Roan in an interview criticized the Democratic Party for issues like their support of Israel amidst the genocide in Palestine and now their invasion of Lebanon, as well as the Democratic Party's historically weak allyship of the LGBTQ community, her reasonable stance was stripped of nuance. A misinterpreted phrase, "both sides have issues," which is distinct from "both sides are the same," was taken out of the context of the interview, which then was cause enough for her to be thrown into a discourse binary of "you're either with us or against us." Critics argued that because Roan dared to critique Kamala Harris, she essentially was supporting Donald Trump. Even after clarifying in a TikTok video that she planned to vote for Kamala, acknowledging the stakes of this election while rightfully bemoaning the fact that we only have these two really terrible choices, while not saying that they were the same, she still was attacked. She was dehumanized through people questioning her identity as a queer woman, showcasing that her identity is only accepted as long as she supports dominant views. And as a trans woman, it mirrors to me how I often see trans people dead-named or misgendered within liberal spaces when they oppose dominant viewpoints, a moment which signals to many other trans people within that space that we are only accepted as long as we don't dissent. Some of the backlash came even from cis gay men within the LGBTQ community, highlighting the misogyny that appears within this community alongside more general issues of sexism. She was dogpiled and accused of supporting fascists simply for being critical of leadership, which is a core tenet of supposed liberal democracies. And as a neurodivergent queer woman who's spoken about her struggles with sexualization and objectification, Roan had to step back from the public for her mental health recently due to all of this. Honest to God, it reminds me of what happened to the Dixie Chicks after 9/11. The wonderful Brigitte Empire covers more on Roan in her own video, but this highlights how these issues are not just within right-wing spaces, though the grifters are often more right-wing, but is prevalent across the internet in how we dehumanize each other, and it's being supported by YouTube's complicity. Even real issues, things worth having nuanced conversations about, get aired publicly between creators to farm engagement rather than to genuinely build solidarity or ask for accountability. There's no space for a simple conversation, no effort to work through differences. It's all just spectacle, and the algorithm doesn't care about resolution or growth. It craves outrage because this keeps people glued to their screen, feeding the cycle of anger. And the more personal you can make these conflicts, the better. That will get even more engagement. And if you don't have that personal David versus Goliath fight, it's easy to fabricate one through misinformation and posturing, as we've seen. And what's worse is it pushes us creators into performative roles, turning real struggles and real harm into content. Instead of fostering understanding or compassion, it drives division, forcing creators like me into a corner where every word is taken out of context to reduce a simplified narrative to be weaponized. If you want clear examples of breaches of YouTube's terms of service, take how many of the YouTubers that I've mentioned, such as Ryan Cattell or Matt Walsh, refer to all trans people as mentally ill, sometimes even calling trans people disgusting, such as in this clip where YouTuber Ryan Cattell refers to the upcoming video game Dragon Age the Veilguard, allowing people to choose to have their own created character to have top surgery scars as somehow fetishizing mental illness, referring to gender dysphoria in trans people.
Dragon Age the Veilguard character creator has option for top surgery scars. That's right, in this world of magic and elves and different races and crazy shit, dragons, magic, all this stuff, it turns out that mentally ill people are still cutting their breasts off because they just so desperately need to put this in the game for you. They don't want you to create characters that look super feminine, but they do want to give you the option to be able to make sure your character has also chopped his breasts off, just like you did. This is so weird and strange and fucked up. And it's gone past the point of, oh, look at all the options in character creators. This is celebrating and fetishizing mental illness. That's what this is. It's very fucking weird.
This clearly breaches YouTube's terms of service. Even if you take as a given that gender dysphoria is a mental illness, which is its own whole nuanced discussion to get into, not all trans people experience gender dysphoria, nor do even all trans men who get top surgery suffer from gender dysphoria, or even all people who get top surgery, period, because more than just trans men get top surgery. And to imply that all trans people, or even simply all trans men who get top surgery, as Ryan is here, are mentally ill, is a way of dehumanizing transgender transgender people, which breaks this section cited on screen of YouTube's terms of service. Others, like Matt Walsh, make similar statements all the time.
Gabrielle Mack, and you see her in her underwear with a huge hole dug out of her thigh there. You can see that in the thigh. But you also notice something else, the sad thing here. If we can select just one sad thing from this tragic, grotesque spectacle, and that is that she still doesn't look at all like a man, right? She has wide hips, kind of an hourglass figure. She's very small and petite. Now, she doesn't look like a woman, certainly, but neither does she look like a man. She's in sort of, if you choose to destroy yourself, you'll be left with this, which is what all trans people who get surgeries are left with.
Yet YouTube does not take down their videos or punish these channels, despite these being fairly regular statements in their work. Not to mention, as I said before, being trans is often referred to as a sexual fetish, which is also a breach of YouTube's terms of service as it sexualizes transgender people. Yet again, sexualizing or calling transgender people mentally ill is allowed in our society today because we are not seen as normal, and this type of characterization is seen as okay. And I'm talking about trans people here, but there are similar instances of racism, ableism, sexism, and more in many of these videos, and it's rampant and clearly violating terms of service much of the time. If I wanted to waste my life finding all the terms of service violations that these creators do, I could, but it's not my job. It's YouTube's job to police this. But they're not enforcing it even when people directly call it out. These merchants don't care about the truth, they care about the clicks, the drama, the never-ending churn of conflict that keeps the machine rolling. And I'm not saying that I've been perfect in all of it too. We all have done it in some form or another. And it's the system's fault on YouTube. YouTube's algorithm thrives on drama and outrage and it rewards those who play into it. I have constantly seen tiny channels barely scrape 100 views, but then suddenly release a negative video on a culture war topic and suddenly explode. Take Andy Pants Gaming, which is a small channel that recently skyrocketed due to low-effort reactionary video content with titles like Why Are Games Gay Now? Or The Pussification of Games. It's the perfect example of YouTube's reward system. Lazy negativity meeting anti-woke fervor, drawing attention and cash. The algorithm amplifies this kind of content because it keeps people engaged in endless cycles of outrage. You can also see this in how the biggest channels in certain spaces like Star Wars Theory, which used to have earnest Star Wars fandom content, have instead shifted to simply low-effort culture war rage bait. I also can't know a person's or creator's mind, but I have to imagine that it's soul-sucking to constantly make content about things you hate. I can't imagine making 2 or 3 videos a day about stuff that you absolutely despise, especially when the content you're making isn't exactly creatively fulfilling. On the opposite side, marginalized creators and creators trying to make earnest works of art struggle to be heard. When we pour time and energy into creating thoughtful, nuanced content, the algorithm pushes us aside in favor of creators who stoke culture war flames. It's not the culture warriors that we're fighting, it's YouTube's own system which actively fuels rage for profit. We're left battling not only the bigots, but the platform itself. YouTube, alongside other social media sites like the artist formerly known as Twitter, are, to put it frankly, harassment incubators and factories, where people create narratives to harass and bombard you until you're silent or you respond, which can then lead them to get more content for rage bait. Honestly, just mentioning these folks in this video will probably get me more harassment, so I do apologize if I'm not in the comments like I usually am. And I've tried my best to not participate in the drama content that YouTube incentivizes, but I'm not perfect in that either. I've contributed in my own ways. Some of my videos are built around culture war narratives, though trying to push them into more educational, empathetic directions. But more importantly, I have actively tried to avoid drama fueled by online figures that are closer in my sphere to me, because doing so, responding to them, would mean that they could then create an incestuous cycle of drama bait. And in a big coincidence, as I was editing this video, the wonderful Innuendo Studios released a great 6-minute video about this exact tactic and how it's meant to burn people out on baseless criticism. But staying out of response videos like that has its cost. It is burning. I am known as a racist, a cat abuser, a deranged woke journalist, a tranny weirdo, an autogonophile trying to groom children, all from very vastly different segments of the internet, all stoking drama based on out-of-context simplifications of my words directly. And it's not the bad faith actors who hurt the most in those situations. It's the people who believe the misrepresentations without ever listening to me. I had people leave my Patreon. I lost tons of subscribers. There were whole threads written about me on social media. Narratives were spread, and even people sent me long messages on email or even my Patreon cruelly attacking me as a person, calling me a terrible human being or an abuser or a liar or that I'm getting trans people killed, all for things that I never said or did but were spread by bad faith actors. The anger that I feel comes from a desire to want to explain myself. I want people to understand where I'm coming from, what I actually said, but explaining myself would become part of the problem. The algorithm encourages me to retaliate, but it would mean losing myself to conflict, rather than being recognized for my work. If I make a video about it, talking about it, it's reduced to more drama. A back and forth response from my words will once again be simplified, taken out of context, and used against me, no matter how much I try to guard against bad faith actions. So the anger that they are intentionally trying to stoke in me to get a response to me has to be shoved inside. And it consumes me. And this is frankly, personally, just difficult. Because as an autistic person, the fear of being misunderstood is already tough, but when it's weaponized against me, it becomes frankly unbearable. It's why my videos have become so long and filled with caveats. Because I just want to try and guard against every bad faith interpretation. Yet no matter how hard I explain, people still twist my words. People crave simplicity in a world that's frankly overwhelming right now. And that's human. But that simplicity turns me and others into antagonistic narratives for engagement. And we're just torn apart in the process. And if I'm being earnest and jumping off script here for a moment, situations like this that have happened over and over in the past few months to me that I'm not going to speak about publicly have made me reflect on something that a close friend told me recently, that my emotional need to be understood by people who will never care to understand me has unintentionally become a form of self-harm, because I keep looking at it and wanting to explain but can't say anything. And it's caused me to realize that I need to step away from it. But that realization is really, really hard to accept when the internet was the only place throughout much of my life where I found friends and community, whether it be with Trekkies or other trans people. And luckily I have more in-person communities now, but the internet for a long time was home and where I could finally be myself when the real world wouldn't allow it. And it's where I found the ability to express my art, to be creative in a way that other places wouldn't let me. But now that same place that once felt liberating is twisting me into something to be praised or vilified, and ultimately just commodified. And the pain of that transformation, of seeing a space that once embraced my true self now turn me into content, is hard to reconcile emotionally. And to be honest, it's affecting my health. I haven't talked about this publicly, but I have been struggling mentally and physically for several months now. It's not constant, but when this stuff flares up, I frankly teeter on the edge of depression, because I have to hold frustration and sadness and anger and fear and anxiety, and I have nowhere to really release it. I've had panic attacks and nights spent crying and days where I'm just glued to my phone, unable to look away from the constant bombardment of harassment. And even when I put the phone down, my mind is still stuck there, even when I try to walk away from it. And it just drains all of my energy to create, or even more importantly, to just relax or recharge or just be present with people in my life. And I do have partners and friends and a therapist who help, and they're wonderful, but YouTube is a lonely world. And most people don't understand it. And those who do are rarely physically nearby. And so it's hard to find people who fully understand. Like I find myself trying to explain to Erin all this stuff that's going on, and she just kindly listens, but kind of gives a blank stare because she doesn't doesn't get it all. And sometimes that's helpful. Other times it's not. Other times it's isolating. And I mentioned it's affecting my physical health. For months now, I've had intense shoulder pain to the point where some days I can't even like move my neck. And I even had an x-ray done on it, and my doctors couldn't explain it, but I know what causes it. Because a few weeks ago, I took a cross-country trip with a friend to get away from all this for a little bit, and I actively chose to back away from my phone and my computer. And despite sitting in a car all day as we were driving cross-country, my pain began to ease. And by the time I got home, it was completely gone. And then all of this nonsense happened, and the pain has come rushing back. And I'm not saying all this for pity or attention. I've kept quiet about it until now for a reason. But I'm sharing it now because A, something has to change, and 2, B, I guess, I know I'm not alone. This is unsustainable, not just for me, but for so many creators and people dealing with all of this stuff that I've been talking about in this video. The ecosystem that YouTube has created is deeply damaging for all of us, and it's, for me at least. If I keep going down this road in the way that all of this is incentivizing, telling me to feel, it's going to kill me slowly. And I've been realizing that over the past few weeks and months, and it's made me question whether I have to step away from YouTube completely for my health. And that thought's been swirling in my head, especially since early this year, as I watch people like Matt Pat and Tom Scott retire from YouTube. You know, it's left me wondering, when is my time to get that? When do I get that helicopter ride into the sunset moment? What will my exit look like? And is it now? Because it would be an easy fix to the health problems. But when I think about that, when I think about stepping away from this, it tears me up because there's frankly still so much that I want to do and say. You know, my biggest joy this past year was making IDENTITEAZE. It was a science fiction film that I made, for those of you who don't know. It's on Nebula. But making that, I got to work with actors who I adored. I got to create the sci-fi that I've always loved, and I got to build something meaningful with a queer cast and crew that made every challenge that I faced on that worth it. And we made something that is really special to me and that I want to do again. And when I think about the videos that I made on YouTube, like Sex and Star Trek or the Dreaming of the Queer Internet video I told you about, I love making those videos. I am so proud of them. It is a joy to make, it is a joy to share, and it is joy to just do. You know, and I love sharing my life and my joy with all of you. I love sharing Erin and our love for each other. It means the world to me, and I love having it be part of videos. I love making things that support me and her through my creativity. And I like turning difficult topics into something positive and hopeful. And that feeling proves to me that there is a fire in my heart that still wants to create. I still want to do videos. I have many planned. I'm working on a sci-fi feature film script that I'm so excited about. I'm pitching IDENTITEAZE as a TV series. And I want to make these projects not just for me, but for you, because I'm excited about them. I don't want to lose my love for this work because that spark is still in me, waiting to be fanned into a giant flame. But instead of nurturing it, I've been pushed to fuel the fire of anger that's burning me and many creators from the inside out. You know, I've seen it happen. I've seen friends and fellow creators burn out who work in YouTube and similar industries dealing with similar issues of systemic failures like Hollywood. I've seen many of my friends with hopes of sharing their voice and creativity just be crushed by the weight of it all. And I know all of this is worsened by my financial fears and the pressure of YouTube's algorithm, that I constantly feel like I have to churn out content that do numbers. And when those numbers don't line up and the money doesn't come in from YouTube's back end, it feeds that anxiety, this fear that I'm not understood, and it creates a vicious loop. Because I've been seeing lately my Patreon has been gradually declining this past year, not because of any failure I believe on my part or my creativity, but because all creators face that natural ebb and flow of supporters, and it's normal. But that ebb hasn't been balanced with new patrons because I've spent too much time explaining myself to people who don't care to hear me instead of creating for people who do, based on that anxiety and anger and frustration at this whole situation. And that financial loss has fueled even more anxiety and fear. And honestly, while I'm okay on my own for a decent amount of time, getting engaged has added to that pressure. And we're struggling a little bit right now, and we're hoping to move somewhere cheaper soon, but we're dealing with that stress. And the algorithm constantly whispers in my ear, well, you could make engagement content, stoke drama, make the rage bait. And I try not to do that, but I'm stuck holding that anger and anxiety the system feeds, letting it live inside me. And it hurts. Recently, I saw someone comment on my work and who saw through all the reasons why my videos contain so many caveats and clarifications, who said, the good faith actors don't need it, and the bad faith actors won't respect it. And that hit me hard because they're right. I spent too much time explaining myself to people who will never care, draining myself for a system that exploits me and throws me aside. And I see other creators burning out too, chasing success or validation on YouTube's terms, a system that's made it clear it doesn't give a shit about either of those things. We're all chasing shadows, forgetting that the real goal should be to focus on building something beautiful together, about celebrating what I have tattooed on my arms, infinite diversity and infinite combinations, embracing solidarity through radical recognition of ourselves and each other through creating artistic work. It's the love of creating, the love of the process, the love of those we do it for and with that should guide us. That's where the real meaning is. I don't expect everyone to agree with me or everyone to love my work. I probably wouldn't be saying anything worth hearing if everyone liked me. I thrive on discussion. I thrive on making content that is thought-provoking. It's because I believe that we're stronger when different voices from different perspectives come together to create something bigger than ourselves. But that requires us to constantly see the humanity in each other. Requires us to build a community that is kind. And that isn't what YouTube is building right now. What YouTube incentivizes right now is an economy that burns out and exploits us, its creators. It creates systems that benefit those with money or protect YouTube's image, rather than working through the hard and complex stuff in ways that may not always be to the creator's liking, but aims to uplift the creator's work and intention. I know so many creators scraping themselves over coals to make art, burning out, unable to rest because YouTube's vague policies and constant pressure feeds their financial anxieties and forces them to just endlessly toil. Meanwhile, outraged merchants swoop in, twist our words, distort our work, and create toxic environments that we all have to engage in, whether we want to or not. And then they fly past us in the algorithm, thriving off of garbage content, plagiarism, childishness, and normalized bigotry. Meanwhile, big companies are able to push down or block the content they don't like and steal the money from those that they allow to exist. I want to be able to focus on what fuels my passion, the videos and feature films that I hope to pitch that mean something to me. But to do that, I need to be able to prioritize my health. So I am going to be making the choice to do that. I am going to be stepping back a little bit to make less content less often, but make better content. And that's honestly not the smartest financial move right now, but it's frankly essential for me. I am done letting people who will never understand my emotions control me, and I'm done letting YouTube dictate how I channel my emotions into my work. This isn't me raging against the idea that there is a business end of this job. There is a business end of this job. That's always going to be the case with any artist. Sadly, frankly, most artists don't get to just make whatever they want. But we can make a system that better enables that. And I frankly want to try and build that for myself. If it hits a point where I can't financially justify it anymore, I'll figure it out from there. It's kind of scary to say that, frankly. But I'm tired of pretending that systems designed to exploit me will ever uplift me. YouTube came millimeters within admitting it discriminated against me. And even if they didn't, the way they handled things didn't exactly build trust. I don't believe in this platform right now. I don't believe that it supports me, and I don't know if I ever will. I can use it, but it's not for me. Creators like MatPat left YouTube on their own terms because they felt that they had fulfilled their goals here. And that's not to say that they didn't face challenges, but it's clear who gets to reach that point of creative fulfillment in their careers. If YouTube wants more creators to thrive here, to reach that point, creators from different backgrounds, it needs to change. And YouTube, if you're listening, you need to do things to fix this. You need to do things like hire more people who actually understand these issues, like more trans people, especially trans people of color, and put them in positions where they can actually influence policy and decisions that affect creators like me. But given how things have gone over the past 2 years and the constant right-wing attacks on things like DEI initiatives, I'm not optimistic. But that's what needs to happen if this platform is even going to nominally make a direction in improving. Prove me wrong, YouTube. I want you to. And to creators here, frankly, I think we need to organize. We have power as creators, but only if we stand together and make our demands heard together. Nebula has been such a huge help to me because they represent many creators, not just me. Many creators whom are bigger than I am. And it's our collective weight that allows Nebula to get anything done. And I'm so grateful for them. They kick ass. And I do believe that Nebula's existence helps creators even outside the platform. But frankly, we creators need to do organizing more outside of things like Nebula. We also all, viewers and creators, need to push YouTube to demonetize hateful channels like The Daily Wire, PragerU, and the Outrage Merchants. As the Star Wars fandom shows us, we are at a tipping point. We are all feeling it because we can't keep going down this path. So the question becomes, what will this platform define itself as? What does it want to be? If YouTube demonetizes those platforms, it would send a clear message to creators that this kind of toxic content isn't acceptable, and chasing it won't be rewarded. But right now, it is rewarded because YouTube needs the money. And I'm frankly not sure that that will change anytime soon because YouTube is invested in uplifting that type of content at the expense of marginalized creators, done through mismanagement and misunderstandings of how its sense of neutrality upholds these discriminatory views and silences creators who speak out. YouTube publicizes itself as a place that uplifts creators, yet they protect big companies more than individuals and allows lazy, low-quality content to dominate, not just over others, but at the direct expense of their creators. We as creators need to have these conversations more, and viewers need to be talking about it too. And it's not just about this platform's health, it's about our health as creators. The burnout emotionally and physically is real, and it's only going to get worse. So for those of you watching, I encourage you to not only be vocal about these issues, but also take control of your algorithm. Block content that fuels the outrage economy and share creators who push back against it. Help us create healthier working conditions and foster positive engagement instead of feeding into hate, anger, and fear. And if you can, support creators who are meaningful to you financially so we don't have to rely on this platform. I want YouTube to be a place that truly supports creators, but right now, that's not what it is. With that said, as a quick heartfelt request here as I wrap up, if you believe in my work and want to support me, my fiance, and our cats who are currently meowing in the other room, please consider joining me on Patreon. Your support really does make a difference, and it will help me stay healthier as a creator and allow me to, work on the hopefully incredible art that I'm really passionate about and be able to make those feature films and those videos that I really do care a lot about. And I can only do that because of you, and even consider trying to focus on my health because of you. But to end on the real point, to YouTube, I'm done letting you dictate my anger, my emotions, my creative spirit, and my heart. They belong to me, and I'll share them on my terms. You're just lucky to be the platform that I'm using to do so right now. And to my fellow creators, artists, and anyone struggling with similar feelings or experiences, please prioritize your health. We all need to do that a hell of a lot more.